Yeah, we are glad to have you join us on Udala Radio 104.7 FM. It's 18 minutes past 9 a.m. and we are saying welcome to the Polity, our Thursday edition, this 5th day of February 2026. My name is Franklin Ibaka, and as usual, I have the in-house analyst who is with me today on today's program, Antonio Disambeki. Good morning.
Good morning to you, Franklin Ibaka. Good morning, Nigerians. Good morning, the good people of Southeast. Good morning. The Anambra, good morning, and Onitsha, Donido, good morning, the Osumo, and we always welcome and also say good morning to the Memake Onitsha and the Afianine, the Bobinino Wenas Wafia, and we are not also forgetting the transporters, the Okada riders, the Keke riders, the shuttle bus riders, and every other person in that very business, and we also welcome Dolo Ibo. Wherever you are listening to us from, it's always a pleasure. It gladdens our hearts knowing very well that you are there for us, that you listen to us. Because what we do here is to equip our minds, our thoughts with deep knowledge and enlightenment. That's what we do here. So we welcome everyone, the artisans that call. We know very well that you pay serious attention to this very program. We acknowledge that. And we also welcome everyone, even those who are on hospital beds, those who are doing one thing or the other on the road. We welcome everybody. You're welcome, because we always say this: conscience is an open wound. It can only be healed by the truth. We thank God Almighty for a day like this, today being Thursday, the 5th day in the month of February in the year 2026. We thank Him for His mercies, for bringing us here, for the life He has given to us, and every other thing He has been doing in our lives. We thank God Almighty for a day like this. You are welcome.
Okay, so thank you once more for always being there with us here on Udala Radio 4.7 FM. And you know what we do on the Polity is that we bring you headlines from various newspapers and then get to do analysis on some of the topical developments. And this very morning we are live on our Facebook page, Udala Radio 104.7 FM. Get on that very page, follow, like, share, and at the same time drop your comment. We are also live on our YouTube and Instagram channels, Udala Radio. So let's get interactive on those platforms. And this very morning, of course, there are lots of development in the Polity. But when you look at the front pages of the newspapers, you see that there is an advertorial, a message from Mr. President going to one particular person. In fact, I have checked about 5 national newspapers, and the advertorial is on the front page of these papers. That tells you that this very morning we have fewer headlines on the front page. So what you can see is many headlines inside the pages of newspapers. But something we have to highlight this very morning, a couple of things for us to highlight that you can check out, which if you go to different platforms they are getting attention. One of them is the fact that there has been this ongoing Southeast Vision 2020 Regional Stakeholders Forum ongoing in Enugu. It began on Tuesday. It's a 3-day forum, and yesterday Vice President Kashin Shettima was in Enugu, where he unveiled the 25-year development blueprint of the Southeast. And guess what? The Southeast governors were there yesterday, and likewise political leaders, policy leaders. We talk about captains of industry, we talk about traditional rulers and the religious rulers. They were all there yesterday in Enugu to welcome Vice President when he came to unveil that very plan. If you move away from that very one, so you see that also on the news this very morning is the fact that Nnamdi Kanu has appealed the judgment of the Federal High Court in Abuja, which convicted him on terrorism charges. In fact, he was able to marshal out 7 grounds upon which his appeal was filed. So you see that too. Then the killings in Kwara and Plateau State are in the news. 2 days ago, we had about 40-something persons killed in Kwara State. Yesterday, the number increased to 7-something. And this very morning, what we got is that it's up to 102 persons who were killed in Kwara. And in Plateau too, many people were killed. They are all in the news this very morning. Then the Anambra State House of Assembly did something 2 days ago. They passed the Anambra State Public Complaints, Financial Crimes and Anti-Corruption Commission Bill of 2026. What that means is that Anambra State has taken, should I say, a step further to ensure that public accountability is enhanced by having a commission that is going to be a replica of the likes of EFCC and ICPC at the state level. to try financial crimes perpetuated at the state level. Then the big story is the Senate of Nigeria, which yesterday, after the fourth attempt, passed the Electoral Act Amendment Bill of 2026. And guess what? The biggest thing that people were pushing for, they tactically dealt with it. You are going to know what they did by the time we begin our conversation. And on the sports segment, of course, Man City booked their place in the Carabao Cup final after defeating Newcastle. These are the things you can see on many papers making the headlines. And we have to begin by looking at the headlines. Let's see what and what we have in these very papers before we begin the analysis for today. Okay, thank you for staying tuned to Udala Radio 104.7 FM. You are listening to the Polity. My name is Franklin Ebekanda. We'll begin with the headlines we have on the front pages of 4 newspapers we have this morning. And the 4 of them are The Punch, Vanguard, Daily Sun, and the Tribune newspaper. And we'll begin with the headlines we have on Punch newspaper. This one says, Kwara massacre, FG faces heat as 100 feared dead. That story is on pages 3 and not too clear now. I'll try to get to the page, but that headline says Kwara massacre, FG faces heat as 100 feared dead. You will see other headlines on the front page of the Punch. Then there is this very advertorial coming from President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, sending golden felicitation to Matthew Uweha to Laha. It's the one I talked about that is on the front page of all the national dailies we have this very morning. So you see it on any page you open this morning on the newspapers. Okay, so other headlines that can be found on the front page of sorry for that. So we continue with the headlines we have on the front page of the Punch newspaper. This one says, Diazani trial, UK contractor details luxury property on paid bills. That story is on page 20. Delayed Electoral Act Amendment could disrupt 2027 poll timetable. INEC. That story is on page 2 of the Punch newspaper. Then we move over to the Vanguard newspaper. This one says, Banks divert credit to services sector. The story is on page 19. A jihadist executes 162 in Kwara massacre. That story is on page 51. It has a rider as gunmen kill policemen, 16 others in Benue. Other headline on page 8 of Vanguard says, Christian genocide, U.S. Congress urges stricter action on global religious freedom. The big story says, Electoral Act, Senate passes bill, reject mandatory electronic transmission of results. That story is on page 7. It has riders, reduces election notice from 360 to 180 days. LP, PDP, George Okorie slam Senate over result transmission. And this one says, we retain old law, didn't reject electronic transmission at Babio. INEC vows to scrutinize voters register, says dead men don't vote. declares readiness for February 21st Abuja Council Rivers Kano by-elections. So these are the headlines you will see on the front page of the Vanguard, and of course the goodwill message coming from Mr. President to Matthew Tunlaha on his 50th birthday. It's also on the front page of Vanguard newspaper. Then another headline that can be found there says Anambra Assembly passes anti-graft bill to domesticate fight against corruption. So you can also see that there on the Vanguard newspaper. Then we move over to the next paper, which is the Daily Sun. Yes, we look at the Daily Sun now, and the headline here says Southeast governors leaders push for regional projects economic bloc. That's the outcome of the summit that was held yesterday. It has a rider that says presidency pledges support for regions growth. That story is on page 8. Senate slashes election notice deadline to 6 months. The story is on page 8 too. It has a rider rejects mandatory electronic transmission of results, retains 2022 Electoral Act. Okay, and those are the headlines we have on the front page of Daily Sun, because the advertorial coming from Mr. President is also on the front page of Daily Sun. Then from Nigerian Tribune, death toll rises as bandits kill scores in Kwara. That story is on page 24. And the rider says soldiers, forest guard take over communities. Red Cross claims over 162 killed. Lawmaker says 35 killed. It's a cowardly attack on civilians, Kwara government. Killing of over 100 is a national disaster, Soraki. Then the big headline says Senate passes electoral bill, rejects mandatory e-transmission of results. That story can be found on page 3 of the Nigerian Tribune. The writers say reduces notice of election from 360 to 180 days. Recommends 5 million naira fine for unlawful possession of PVC. We returned the 2022 law Ababio. Ndume Lalang protest conference committee composition. Senate's action, a deliberate assault on electoral transparency article. And this one is coming from PDP. Decision harmful to democratic consolidation. So reactions really in the action of the Senate yesterday. And this one says monumental loss behind shutdown of refineries. NNPC. Check page 6. Nigerian economy records 55.7 point expansion in economic activity. The story on page 5 is coming from CBN PMI. Then Nigeria to overtake Algeria as Africa's third largest economy. The story on page 5 is a prediction coming from IMF. 2027 politics won't affect my job as FCT minister. Wike. The story on page 8. 2027 INEC will stick to Electoral Act 2022. Drops hints on voter revalidation exercise. FCT poll to proceed as scheduled. The story is on page 2. Salt in drinking water may rise blood pressure. Story. Check page 2. And the last headline we have this very morning is talking about the Southeast Summit that held yesterday, and I think it will continue today and end today. In fact, if you check this day newspaper, check Guardian newspaper, if you check Vanguard, they are all they are all on these very newspapers, and these are the headlines we have this very morning. So next will be for us to go to the conversation.
You're listening to The Polity. Get involved now.
Okay, thank you for staying tuned to the Radio 104.7 FM. It's 9:33 a.m. and you are listening to The Polity. My name is Franklin Nebukanda with Tony Olisambeki on today's program. We begin from Anambra State. Of course, there are two developments in Anambra we're going to talk about. One is yesterday, INEC had a press conference in Noka where the REC, Dr. Elizabeth Agu, he addressed the press and talked about the ongoing voter registration in Anambra State, and she said that within 4 weeks of resumption of CVR, that 4,000 plus persons have already registered, and according to her, it was impressive. She said it began slowly, and by the second week it began to pick up, and by the third, fourth week, the numbers increased. And according to her, she was impressed by what she saw. So, Tony, 4,000 plus registrations within 4 weeks of a CVR commencing in Anambra State. Is it a good one for the state?
Judging by where we're coming from, it will be a kind of a springboard. Not really that it is all good, because we know what CVR, continuous voters registration, what it's like in this part of the country where many people do not believe in the electoral system, and they have their reasons. They have why they may not put every trust, put every confidence in the system. 4,000 plus so far in a week or so. Well, you ask, is it a good one? For me, it's a springboard. You wouldn't say it's a good one, because we know the population we have here. Anambra State, for instance, has the population hovering around 8 million to 9 million people, and it's still increasing. And with that population, so far, before the November 8, 2025 governorship election, we are told about 2.4 million people registered. And we are told by now that number, if things are done diligently, if people believe in the system, believe in the electoral space, we'll be talking about having half of that very figure. About 3 point something million to 4 million people should be registered voters. And I tell you one thing, most of these people you see on social media, especially on Facebook and on Instagram, many of them are not registered voters. If you go to markets, we usually talk about Mbuka market, main market, many of them, they are not interested in voting. They are not interested in the system. You can imagine where they are all registered voters. Anambra State should not be having anything less than 3.5 million registered voters. Well, we have 2.4 going to 2.5 million registered voters. It is not a good development. In fact, even during the election day proper, out of that very figure, you record much 20% voters turnout out of that number of registered voters. And if you look around, you have about 500,000 people coming out or thereabouts. So it tells you a lot that people do not have confidence in the system, and even our leaders are making it so difficult. We saw what happened yesterday at the Senate. We're going to talk about that. Things that should be done that will prompt confidence naturally. You don't need to advertise it. You don't need to preach about it. These are things that will come naturally if all the I's are dotted, the T's crossed, things done properly. You'll be seeing those things and it will be happening before you. Situations where people think that whoever they decide will be their leader eventually will not be declared the winner, and you want them to participate in the process. And even when we try to make the authorities see reasons and then do what they are supposed to do, these things keep falling on a deaf ear. But remember, I keep telling our people, not participating is worse than you are less confidence in the system. Not participating at all is worse than the confidence you place or no confidence you place in the system. Because if you wear both, you will know very well that you are more disadvantaged when you do not participate at all. But we will also keep talking about the need to make electoral process what it should be. It shouldn't be for some people who are unpopular, who people do not want for one reason or the other. They will shortchange the system to make themselves to be relevant, to perpetuate themselves in that space. I don't think we would fold our arms and watch things degenerate the way it goes in that trajectory. No, we cannot watch our eyes or close our eyes, fold our arms. We will not do that. But just like I said, our people should see the need and should also see the reason in getting involved. You must get involved. And why we push for sanitization of the electoral system, the cleansing of the audience table. We must keep pushing for such until we get what we want.
Okay, so the CVRO resumed on January 5th, 2026 in Anambra State because Anambra didn't join others. Don't forget that when we had our global election last year, there was a CVR before the election. So when the national one started, Anambra didn't join. But by January 5th, 2026, it resumed in Anambra State, and it's going to be on until April 17, 2026. So for you to register, if you have turned 18 or if you want to do location, of course you have to go to the INEC office in the 21 local government areas we have in Anambra State and be able to register. So from what INEC put out, 4,423 persons were able to register within this very 4 weeks of this very ongoing CVR. Like Tony used to say, because impressive, but more needs to be done. Then Tony, let's get to the second thing about Anambra State. It was 2 days ago that the Anambra State House Assembly, took a step in the dimension that Lagos State and Kano State, did some years ago. The Assembly actually passed into law the Anambra State Public Complaints, Financial Crimes and Anti-Corruption Commission Bill of 2026. The bill scaled through third reading on that same day, and what this bill is seeking to do is to establish a specialized state-level agency with legal teeth to prosecute financial crimes and address public grievances independently of the federal institutions like the EFCC and the ICPC. This very bill mandates the Commission to oversight not only state MDAs but also all 21 local government areas within the state. And this very commission is going to have power to do the following: 1. Probe the diversion of public funds and contract inflation at the state and local government levels. I complement the Anambra State Fiscal Responsibility Law by compelling the disclosure of revenue and expenditure from heads of MDAs and the local government. Recover assets, target unexplained wealth and asset acquired through corrupt practices by both state and local government officials. These are some of the things that this very agency or this very commission is going to take care of by the time it comes into power. And from what we understood, by February 17th, 2026 is going to come into effect, and Anambra is going to join the likes of Kano, Lagos State, who already have exercised their constitutional rights to maintain a domestic anti-graft agency to improve the state ease of doing business, ensure accountability, transparency when it comes to governance at the state level. So tell me, how would this impact governance when it comes to transparency, accountability, and people's faith in governance?
Well, we are going to see the way it will be rolled out, because yesterday it was passed and it has not been assented to by the governor. So yesterday we understand that Anambra State House of Assembly passed that very novel bill aimed at achieving so many things. So it's still a bill passed. So by the time the governor assent to it, it will definitely becomes a law. And we have seen some laws, bills passed by the State House of Assembly, especially the Homeland Security Law, and I've gone through the archives. I'm seeing a lot of laws. People don't even know we have landlord and tenant law in Anambra State. Possibly there will be a day we have time and I will roll out some of this law. And so many lawyers don't even know that these laws exist. They don't even know that these laws exist. But that's by the way, we are talking about the one passed yesterday, being 4th February. So we know very well that the bill, by the time it's assented by the governor, will establish the Anambra State Public Complaints, Financial Crimes and Anti-Corruption Commission. You have rolled out the key objectives of this very bill, because it aims to domesticate, that is to localize, adapt to state level the fight against corruption within Anambra State by addressing public complaints, investigating financial crimes, and combating corruption specifically in the state public offices, ministries, departments, agencies, and related matters. by the time Mr. Governor signs this into law, the commission will have authority to investigate corruption cases. They will prosecute offenders where applicable, freeze, confiscate, seize assets, proceeds derived from corrupt acts, and also promote preventive measures like public education and system reviews that will reduce corruption risk. I'm aware that, just like you pointed out earlier on, if you go by the provisions of the 1999 Constitution as amended, Section 4, Subsection 7 grants state houses of assembly the power to make laws for the peace, order, and good government of the state, or any part thereof, on matters not on the exclusive legislatively, that is second schedule, part 1. Anti-corruption at state level falls under residual matters, I've said it many times, or even concurrent powers, as the Constitution does not place general corruption prevention exclusively with the federal government. If you go by the provisions of the Constitution again, going to exclusive legislative list, second schedule, part 1, item 60, which covers establishment of federal anti-corruption bodies like ICPC, EFCC, via specific federal laws. Of course, we have the EFCC Act, we also have ICPC Act, Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission Act. We have all these things. But these acts do not prohibit states from creating complementary agencies for state matters. So, if you go by Section 15, subsection 5 of the 1999 Constitution, it states, the state shall abolish all corrupt practices and abuse of power, a directive principle of state policy binding on all tiers of government. If a local government has power to make bylaws that will prohibit and expose corruption, they can make, because they cannot make laws. National Assembly can only make acts if assented by Mr. President. State assemblies can only make laws if assented by the governor. But the local government, by their legislative council, can make bylaws that can also help in preventing corruption. But they may not be able to prosecute because their legislative bodies, they are handicapped. There are things they cannot also do. So we can go on and let you know that, just like you said, Lagos was first into this. I remember Lagos State has a public complaints and anti-corruption commission. So it was established via the Lagos State Public Complaints and Anti-Corruption Commission law. It was in 2021. That's about how many years? That's about 5 years ago. So I don't know whether it has an earlier version. So I know very well that it is active and well-funded. Kano State did the same thing when you also pointed it out earlier on. I'm also aware that Zamfara State has a state-level anti-corruption body, but also limited in activity. Benue State recently passed a similar public complaint and anti-corruption commission bill around, I think this period, if care is not taken, around early 2026. Benue State, they did pass their own. So I'm also aware that some southwest states like Oyo, Ogun, they have discussed or committed to unified frameworks with ICPC, but they have not fully established these commissions. So we can let you know that in the entire southeast, Anambra is the only state that has joined the leagues of Benue, Kano, Zamfara, Lagos to establish anti-corruption agencies. We know very well that so many permanent secretaries in our ministries, directors, deputy directors, many of them are stupendously rich. They amass state resources, they covet state resources. We are also going to look at contract inflation, because that's what is running. And many of them use projects. They have phony companies. They use different names to set up these phony companies, and most times during the procurement process, these companies are also being used for contract bids, and definitely it will be awarded to them because there are those behind it. And once these things are done, they inflate figures, they do all manner of things. So it's all about fighting corruption at different levels. But we must show sincerity of purpose, that political will. is needed. We've seen those who have the resources of the state. When we entrust these resources to them, they use it the way they want. We've seen commissioners, we've seen heads of agencies building mansions within a space of 2 or 3 years after being appointed by the governor. Nobody asks questions. How do you get to build some of these things? Some of them will tell you, I have businesses running, I've been doing this over time. But all this while you've been doing those things, you've not been able to put up such a structures. Why now? So we must state out some of these things. Yes, before you are appointed, you go and declare your assets. Every appointee of government declares his assets. Even if you are in civil service at a particular level, you declare your assets. So by the time you leave office, we also have the code of conduct bureau. We have code of conduct tribunals at the federal level. Can we have code of conduct tribunal and code of conduct bureau at the state level? Because I'm not even sure if the constitution prevents setting up such. The idea is the federal code of conduct tribunal, they have humongous tax, and nobody processes some of these documents. They have declared the assets. When they leave office, do we go on to determine if they acquire assets while serving, if they make more enlargement, if they enlarge their cost? Nobody has the time. And I'm aware that even the code of conduct tribunal, code of conduct bureau, they don't have the manpower, they don't have the capacity to look at the different states of the federation. They don't have what it takes. So the need for state to set up theirs, to trickle it down at different levels.
Now, Tony, did you know one good thing about this? One good thing about Nigeria is that all of us, we recognize that corruption has dealt with us, and there is need for us to deal with the corruption. All of us who talk about it, we pray that, there could be a day when these things are going to go. But in one way or the other, we are also involved. Now, for Anambra State, we can say this is a very good move that has been taken. So the next one will now be how we are going to give this commission the teeth to bite, because that's where the issue is going to that's where the issue is going to ride is going to ride. Because when the commission comes on board, of course, the next will now be for this commission to begin to function. Then we now expect people to filing the petitions that are to be investigated and what have you not. But before we go on, maybe before we go further, I need to acknowledge the fact that people who made the effort to ensure that this thing came to fruition, they did a wonderful job. Kudos to ROLAC program, because ROLAC program is the one that coordinated this whole thing. The ROLAC program brought in CSOs, the media, and they formed a committee called Anambra Anti-Corruption Committee, ANSAC. I can recall that I think on 2 occasions or 3 occasions we have to pay a visit to the Attorney General of the state and Commissioner for Justice, and she gave her word that they were working, that they were going to introduce an executive bill to the assembly to ensure that this thing comes to fruition. So we now have it. So those who work for it, kudos to them. That tells you that people can work together and make the government to introduce an action. So next thing now be, how do we ensure that this very commission gets to do this very job so that it won't be a replica of EFCC and ICPC we have at the federal level, whereby they have become tools for political fights?
Very well, very important, because when we talk about public complaints, and I've said it many times, let me dwell a little bit about it. We must also find a way to set up a special court for this commission, so it won't be a usual court processes we have with the EFCC, where cases will be there for a very long time. They will be investigating or trying a particular suspect over many years, to the point that people will even lose interest. And remember, the EFCC at a point was used for political vendetta. It became an attack dog for different governments in power at different times. It started with Obasanjo, from the Obasanjo regime to Yaradra, Jonathan, Buhari, and we saw their works. Some good, some not palatable, but that's by the way. And then the area of public complaints, we've known very well that in this Anambra State is a home of commerce. I don't want to add industry until I start seeing industries burgeoning in different spaces, but it's a home of commerce, trade. Now, we know very well that people who engage in transactions, some for one reason or the other, try to owe the people they are in business with for no just reason. You can't complain to the commission that this person is owing you. Just a mere petition to the commission that you are owed so amount of money, 100,000, 200,000, 300,000. I have said it many times. Please do not recover debt. Leave police out of debt. You are just trying to enrich them. It is not their business. What police gets involved is if the transaction was a dishonest one, a false pretense, something done wrong. But if it was a clean transaction, just that the person is owing you, police have no business to even mediate. It is out of their jurisdiction. They can only come in if that the transaction has some criminal tendencies. I've said many of them: false pretense, some kind of a dishonest transaction, false claims, deceit, and some of these things. Once these things are involved, then it becomes an issue. But outside this, if it was just a biyemonya and wafia, kole, or lesia, you know, I gave this person my goods to sell, and after selling the goods, he's still owing me. Clean transaction. You bring in police? No. You go to this commission, but they must have capacity. We also look at the way we are. By the time the governor signs this into law, they must have a building. Yeah, they should have a secretariat, and they will have some policemen working with them, working along with them, and they would have powers to investigate public complaints. You buy a product, any product, you feel that for one reason it didn't give you certain satisfactions, you can make a complaint. That is, by the way. You also look at the other ministries, not just ministries, departments, parastatals, and then agencies. Any dishonest transaction, that thing EFCC does, it can as well do within state laws, not within federal laws. It can do within state laws. The idea is to make sure that we sanitize the system. I'm looking at situations whereby they must be given necessary funds to take off, and people of impeccable character, not situations where they will make some seizures and some of these things will not be accounted for. We've seen that with EFCC many times. We've seen those who are, because they did not attach economic crime. I don't know if you understand it, they avoided it, so it will not clash with EFCC's role, because EFCC is Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. This one has to do with public complaints, if you understand it. So, because if you add economic crimes now, they will start going for Yahoo boys. So EFCC will be going for Yahoo boys, and they will on their own be after these Yahoo boys. So there will be a conflict of interest. But just like I said earlier on, they carefully avoided the economic crimes, as the case may be. But if you look at the way it is structured, Anambra State public complaints, financial crimes, and let me say this thing, every financial crime is an economic crime. I don't know if you understand me. Every financial crime is an economic crime. Probably they don't want to wear the same name. Every financial crime is an economic crime. So they can also have powers to go after Yahoo. That is the point. Because Yahoo conduct is a financial crime, but it must be treated within state laws, because state laws will be used to prosecute such. But I want to ask, do we have any state law on financial crimes? That's another thing, because if you arrest somebody, you may use, you must domesticate some federal laws so that it can give you the ample powers to go after these very people, because you must use law to prosecute them. So I don't know if another state has a financial law, a financial crime law, anti-financial crime prohibition law. I don't know if there is any, but I know the other time I went to the archives, I saw so many laws.
Yeah, and just like what you're saying now, the so many laws we have, I think that should be about 3 weeks ago or more than that, the Anambra House Assembly made a move. They want to compile all the laws we have in the state into one booklet and bring it there, so that anybody who wants to have an insight into all the laws that have made in this very state, once you get a copy of that very book, you should be able to read all those laws. And I believe that it's a good step, so that just get a copy of these very laws, and then that will be all. I think for now in Anambra State, we have Anambra State Fiscal Responsibility Law, which basically deals with how government runs its own thing, even the laws on contracting, procurement, and what have you. But the good thing, like you said, is that this very law is going to enable people of Anambra State, because the commission is going to serve as an ombudsman. It becomes a platform for you as Anambra to lodge formal complaints against administrative injustice. If you observe any, you can lodge complaint. If there's any abuse of power you observe, you can lodge complaint. If there's any kind of oppressive conduct by any state or local government official, you can also lodge complaint. And this very commission is going to investigate it and see how people who are found guilty, or people who are found to be suspect or whatever, are being prosecuted. Okay, so we're going to change gears now. Go for commercial break. After the break, we'll talk about a development that happened in Enugu yesterday, where Vice President was in Enugu and all the Southeast governors were there. And guess what? Governor of Enugu State made a proposal. We're going to tell you that proposal he made. Stay with us.
Udala Radio 104.7 FM.
Measles and rubella are deadly diseases. They spread fast, can cause blindness, brain damage, miscarriage, and sometimes death.
Every day, Nigerian children are at risk. But there is good news. The Saints can protect your child. The Anambra State government will conduct a mass vaccination campaign for children 0 to 14 years from 4th to 15th February 2026 to protect children across the state from deadly diseases. Take your child 9 months to 14 years for the measles rubella vaccine today. Complete all routine immunization doses from birth. After the campaign, routine vaccination continues in all health facilities. Vaccines are safe, effective, and paid for by the government. Don't wait. Visit your nearest health facility or vaccination site. Leave no child behind. This message is brought to you by the Anambra State government and partners.
NEPA don take light again. Wetin I fit do? Every day fuel don cost. How person wan take survive? I go cook soup today, tomorrow e go sour.
My people, why you dey stress when the sun dey your head for free? Switch to the affordable solar energy wey Wascana Solar Company dey give small businesses and homes across Naija, whether na barbing salon o, restaurant o, supermarket o, or your 2 or 3 bedroom apartment. Wascana Solar get correct durable solar wey go serve you wella. No more NEPA wahala, no more expensive fuel. Let the sun power your business and home for free. And no forget o, solar fans, solar lights, everything dey available. Call Wascana Solar now for 0806 374 2374. I repeat am, 0806 374 2374, or send email to wascanasolar@gmail.com. Visit their office near Olive Relief after Marble Hill School Junction, Okpanam Road, Asaba, or Classic Line Zone 2, A4 Electrical Dealers International Market, Obosi. Wascana Solar, Okumube.
Udala Radio 104.7 FM. Seriously authentic. You're listening to The Polity. Get involved now.
Okay, thank you for staying tuned to Udala Radio 104.7 FM. It's 2 minutes past 10 a.m. and you're listening to The Polity. My name is Franklin Begandan with Tony Olisambeki. On today's program, go to our Facebook page, Udala Radio 104.7 FM. Get interactive on that platform. We're glad to have you and have your input. Also, we are live on our YouTube and Instagram channels at Udala Radio. So I talked about the forum that is ongoing in Enugu State. That forum is being organized by Southeast Development Commission led by Michael Koye of Anambra State. And for some time now, they've been trying to see how they can, launch a pathway for the Southeast development. And on Monday, he addressed a press conference in Enugu where he talked about this very forum that is going to be for 3 days. And on Tuesday, he held that very Tuesday, held on Wednesday, that was yesterday, when Vice President was in Enugu to present a paper and also unveil the plan. And then today is going to end today. But yesterday, this Vice President was in Enugu. By the time he arrived at Akane International Airport, all the governors were there to welcome him. The only governor who wasn't there present was the governor of Imo State, who sent the Speaker of the House to represent him, but others were there. There were also captains of industries who presented papers on different things. In fact, 2 days ago was Victor Anichebe, former Nigerian international, who delivered a paper on sports, how sports can be harnessed in the Southeast and what have you. So a lot has been ongoing there. And yesterday, the Vice President unveiled that 25-year development blueprint for the Southeast, saying that the region is a central pillar of Nigeria's economic future. And he announced that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has approved the establishment of the Southeast Investment Company Limited, which was designed to mobilize resources from the diaspora, capital markets, and development finance institutions for the region's development. So, Tony, let's start from there. This very path that has been taken by Southeast Development Commission, where a summit was organized, titled Southeast Vision 2050 Regional Stakeholders Forum in Enugu. What do you think about this very platform? Is it a step in the right direction? What can they bring to the Southeast, and how can they maximize the outcome of that congregation in Enugu State?
Yesterday, when the summit, which is being pioneered by Southeast Development Commission, took the center stage, something came to my mind, because I'm aware that in the past, during the time of Michael Okpara, the former premier of the Eastern region, there was such similar commission, and during his own time, he called his own Eastern Nigeria Development Corporation. It was known as ENDC before the Civil War. That was around 1950s down to 1960s. And that Eastern Nigeria Development Commission focused on industrialization, agriculture, and self-reliance. In fact, at that point, it was a program by the premier, championed by Okpara, that made Eastern region to become one of Africa's fastest growing economies. But we know that when the coup of 1966 came, with the pogroms, civil war, that very innovative, visionary program by Michael Okpara was brought to a halt. So immediately this came up yesterday. That very commission from 1950s to 60s came to my mind. It was a commission that was rooted in pragmatism, rooted in deep philosophical revolution of minds, and it helped our people. That was why the region dominated in everything in this country. Dominated in civil service, military, police, parastatals, ministries, agencies, in government, in politics, everything, in education, in health. It was something that the colonial masters looked and watched and said, you know what? And told the other regions, you have to watch out for this very particular region. You have to be very, very careful with this very region. But that's by the way. So it came to my mind yesterday. But let's talk about what happened yesterday. We saw the coming of Mr. Vice President. And I don't know the women who welcomed the Vice President. I don't know the kind of song they were singing. And don't know if they were given any script to sing a song. I don't know, but it was trending on social media.
Can you sing that very song?
I can't remember what they were saying, but they were saying that the vice president is there tomorrow. If I can recall vividly what they were saying in that very song. Our mothers, not even the young ones. But I know it was just window dressing anyway. But let's talk about this very project, Vision 2050. From, I think if you look around from this period now till 2050, it should be around 25 years or 24 years thereabout. So it's about 25 years project. I remember when Obasanjo launched Vision 2010. In fact, Abacha first launched Vision 2010. And Obasanjo during his own time launched Vision 2010 as well. The letter couldn't do anything. I'm talking about the national visions, not the regional ones. The national visions. Then I remember again when Obasanjo launched Vision 2020. Many of us we've been talking politics. Vision 2020, and so many things we were underlined that the country would leapfrog on so many sectors of the society, of the economy, but these things never came to fruition. The promises were a kind of inclusive growth, but they failed due to poor implementation, policy reversals, corruption, lack of continuity across governments, perceived bias in project allocation, and also minimal Southeast focus. Most of these their visions never had Southeast in mind. Yes. So now, after the Eastern Nigerian Development Corporation, ENDC, of 50s and 60s, we are now having another vision. But now, I would also want to say, because I know immediately after the Civil War, there was call for something of this nature, but it never happened, because I know during the 3 R's, policy, rehabilitation, reconstruction, reconciliation, that is the post-1970 Gowon era promise to rebuild the Southeast equally, to reconstruct, to reconcile. These things failed due to a lot of things. You can call them incomplete infrastructure repair, funding, corruption, insincerity, dishonesty, you can name it. I remember all they could do, you can't just promise 3 hours and ended up giving £20 flat rate for any bank deposit and assets by those that were conquered in the war. That's a very wrong approach. I don't want to talk about that, because sometimes if you want to talk about that, you get emotional talking about that. So we are looking at this vision, and I listened to some of the speeches. I listened to the vice president, I listened to the governor of Anambra State, Professor Chukwuma Soludo, I listened to the governor of Abia State, Alex Oti, I listened to the governor of Enugu State, Peter Mba. But I don't know if I don't think I listened to Winfrey and all that. But I'm talking about those I listened to. We've known very well that Southeast has faced marginalization, perceived injustices over the years. They were thriving. They were doing wonderfully well. One of the Africa's fastest growing economies until that January 15, 1966 kill. It changed a lot of things for Southeast. We are on ascendancy, very fast forward trajectory until that coup came. And that coup came with a lot of things, because it also precipitated the pogrom that followed it.
So with what is happening now, do you think that we are getting back on that very path?
I don't know. There are a lot of things I would have want to accommodate. It's one thing, because if you look at Southeast Development Commission, it was through a federal law that it came to be, and we are looking at the funding, diaspora funding. Yes, the president promised, just as the vice president said yesterday, the Southeast Investment Company and so forth and so forth. But we are talking about the funding. Southeast, look at the infrastructural deficit. Everything was leveled during the war. What attempt has the government made boldly to rebuild, to reconstruct, to redevelop? We've seen £20 flat rate being used to get some of these structures. Yes, we saw the Onitsha Enugu Express Road, because we have the old one until Cheuchagare did that road at sometime around 1981 or thereabout, and we've seen Onitsha Were Road, minimal infrastructure, minimal federal presence. That is what we call the deep marginalization. And I'm just telling you, with this vision, because I listened to what Governor of Anambra State said, it called for Southeast Development Commission to prioritize critical regional projects like highway connectivity, regional railway, seaports, security, institutional frameworks, and he urged moving from vision to execution. But it requires funds. When you talk about projects like highway connectivity, is it the one that are doing for a very long time? Because it will take not less than 30 trillion to get some of these things done. We are talking about regional railway that will connect Abakaliki to Enugu, Enugu to Umaya to Owerri to Oka. It requires humongous amount of money. The way the commission is going hand in hand, begging for money, seeking for money, I don't know if they will be allowed to borrow from World Bank or borrow from IMF. I don't know, because we need such regional connectivity. No. So there are so much. The Southeast is lacking. Look at no inland port, functional port.
So Tony, it seems the onus is now on this very commission to see how it can galvanize the governments of the 5 southeastern states to see how they can work together. Because from all the speeches they made yesterday, all of them recognize the fact that there's need for these very states to work together to begin to see themselves as one, other than seeing themselves as the individual state. I'll give you an instance which what Governor Peter Mbao of Enugu State said. He said that the Southeast must be reimagined and built into a common market and economic bloc to realize its potential as an economic powerhouse. Then he added that the region could no longer afford to operate as 5 parallel states. Just to take only this very extract from what he said yesterday. So how this very commission will be able to galvanize these very different state governments to be able to key into what they have professed in Enugu yesterday and be able to work towards it.
You know, talks are ships. I have said it many times. One of the easiest things to do is to talk, but not the kind of the one I'm doing here, because the one I'm doing here is not even easy. But the key thing is this segmentation: Anambra, Enugu, Imo, Abia, Ebonyi. We must look beyond such segmentation. Remember, Eastern region was created in 1954 as part of the Nigeria's federal restructuring from the Southern Protectorate, and it became one of the 3 regions. They had the Northern region, the Western region, and then the Eastern region, though around 1963 Midwestern region split. But that's just by the way. And we saw what happened with state creation in 1967, where go on to weaken the regional power amid secession threats, divided the South or the Eastern region into East Central State, Southeastern State, and River State, because he did this without any consultation. Because we saw that in 1967. That's what Gowon did. May 27, 1967. So, having looked at some of these things, and these brought divisions amongst us. We are one. We are Eastern people. I prefer addressing ourselves. Where are you from? I'm from the Eastern region, not Anambra, not Enugu. Where are you coming from? I'm from the East. That is what it should be, because once we have such mindset, such mentality, we have the proclivity of working together. I have said it many times, but I'm looking at it from the angle where the governors way go beyond mere talks. Yes, Oti was saying he's very happy. This is just becoming more like a revolution in his own speech. And I looked at him back. Let's forget about this segmentation. Let's forget about this demarcation. I look at Soludo. Let's build the Eastern Railway. Let's build highway connectivity. Let's build the Eastern Port. Beautiful species. But the key thing is, We need action, pragmatism.
All right.
We need execution. But the funds, where would the funds come? Because nobody talks about the funds.
Okay.
Nobody, because without funds, none of these things, it will be a mere jamboree. Without funds, yesterday will look like just a mere jamboree where we gathered to just look at certain visions. You know what is vision? Vision, there is difference between vision and dream. Dream is something you wish, but you don't know how to get it. Vision is something you wish, but you have lined out processes, measures to get to that very level. So what are the measures we have lined out to attend to this? If you call it vision, you must give me the blueprint of measures that must be undertaken to get to that very place.
Okay, so let's see how they are going to collaborate, because that's very special proposed vehicle that the vice president announced, where they are going to source money from diaspora, from capital market and what have you. Let's see how they'll be able to harness that and see what they can get, because for us, we would like to see a Southeast where development becomes, the hallmark and becomes the talk of the time, just like the way it was pre-independence era. Okay, so let's talk about Nanikan, who has filed an appeal against the judgment of the Federal High Court that convicted him on terrorism charges. Like I mentioned before, that his appeal was based on 7 different grounds, and he challenging that very conviction, saying that the court of first instance erred in law in convicting him, and he wants the appeal court to quash that terrorism conviction and sentence. So Tony, the next step that had been long awaited is finally here. So what are you thinking?
Well, it's better late than never. We know very well that he's going to file the appeal, and that appeal, he filed a notice of appeal that was yesterday at the Court of Appeal in Abuja, and he challenged his conviction and sentences handed down by Justice James Omotosho of the Federal High Court on November 20, 2025. Remember, he was convicted on 7 counts of terrorism-related offenses, including acts preparatory to terrorism, incitement, membership of a proscribed group, and unlawful importation of a radio transmitter. And he was sentenced to multiple life terms, 5 concurrent life sentences on key counts, plus additional prison terms. So in these 5 counts or 7 counts, 5 of them were life sentences, but they will run concurrently, because if somebody is sentenced to life, what it means that he will stay there till he dies. That's what it means. But we have seen also the other version of it, but I'm not going to dwell on the other version of life sentence, because it also means another thing, but that's by the way. But the true thing is this, but I have to say this thing. If you look at the full notice of appeal, it contains about 22 grounds in total, because he was convicted on 7 grounds. But his appeal, if you aggregate everything, it contains about 22 grounds. He alleged errors of law, denial of fair hearing, contrary to section 36 of the 1999 Constitution, procedural irregularities. They were doing whatever they like without following the known processes, and they also challenged that on miscarriage of justice. These grounds collectively seek to quash the conviction. In fact, asked the court to set aside the sentences and secure his discharge and acquittal on all counts. But I'm looking at some of these grounds, just like I said earlier on. If you aggregate the grounds, about 22 in number, and then if you look at some of them, you find out that he referenced, let me just give 1 or 2 references in some of the notice of appeal I cited, because he was talking about the failure to resolve the procedural and competence consequences of the foundational disruption of the original trial process. He referenced the 2017 military raid, Operation Egweke, that is the Python dance, you remember, on his Afaruku residence, which disrupted proceedings and led to his flight from Nigeria. The trial, according to him, erred by not addressing the legal implication of this disruption, occasioning a miscarriage of justice. You cannot get him convicted without also addressing that. So he talked about the refusal or neglect to hear and determine the appellant's pending preliminary objections. He had filed a lot of preliminary objections at the appeal court, but Justice James Omotosho was quick to act. He said, how can preliminary objections, which is sequel to the trial, be overlooked and conviction rendered? challenging the competence of these proceedings before proceeding to trial. So it also talked about conviction under a repealed law. It has been one of the contentious issues, and I have also in my own previous analysis dwelled so much on that. And he said erroneously convicting and sentencing him under the Terrorism Prevention Amendment Act 2013, despite his being repealed by Terrorism Prevention and Prohibition Act 2022 before the judgment date. We arrested him in 2017. He began the trial in 2017, and even the law you convicted him with does no more exist. He has been discarded to charge bail. But we've seen the prosecutor saying that in the repealed law of 2022, there is a clause, there is a provision that says, notwithstanding what was contained in the previous law, that it shall be continued in this present law. So they quickly cited the provision, but it is something the appeal court must tell us if that provision as contained in the 2022 Terrorism Prevention and Prohibition Act is acceptable, is in line, is in sync with the provisions of the Constitution. So there are laws, just like I said, if you aggregate some of these things
because of time, because of time now. These issues that he has deposited through his lawyers. So the appeal court now will now review the decision made by the lower court to determine whether the law was applied correctly or not. And if you look at the main functions of the appeal court, of course, the appeal court is going to hear appeals from the high court and then other lower courts. It's going to review legal errors, not usually to retry the whole case. And then it's going to either affirm, reverse, or even vary lower court judgments, maybe order a retrial if justice was not properly served, interpret and clarify the law, creating binding precedent. So these are things that we expect the appeal court is going to do on this very case by the time hearing on that very case begins. So let's quickly delve into the what happened yesterday at the Senate, because yes, the Senate passed the Electoral Act Amendment Bill after 5-hour clause-by-clause deliberation. It was passed yesterday, and if you look at what was passed, one thing has become very, very dominant: the refusal of the Senate to adopt mandatory transmission of election result in real time. And that has become the contentious, the issue that is getting attention across board. But that's not the only thing that happened yesterday, because there are other amendments that were adopted or some that were dropped. But this very one is getting that attention, Tony. Why so? And what do you think about the action of the Senate yesterday, in contrast to what the House of Reps did last year before they went on recess?
I expected this, there's no doubt. When I do foresee things and say them, many of you will not understand. They will find ways to either describe what you've seen by their own thoughts. But the truth remains that yesterday was a sad day for democracy. It was a sad day for electoral system, and what we have been preaching, the same old story. Look at their reasons: network coverage and logistical impediment. Many of them cannot win the elections. They need to rig to be there. And possibly, I don't want to say this, but there are some allegations that they are doing this to protect themselves and also protect Mr. President. We've seen this work very well. At this level, somebody is telling us poor network coverage, where we have Starlink that covers the entire country, that all you need is fund to ensure that most of these polling spaces have network coverage, and we can do that within a year. They don't have any reason telling me network, what they call that again, network coverage impediment and logistical issues, saying that, hey, if you do this transmission, these Yahoo boys may even hijack the cyber channels. Can you imagine? And they have not hijacked the cyber channels for your account. So banks that have been, these are style stories, style reasons. We know why they did what they did. See, I have said this thing, that what they have done, not just that it has excoriated the minds. In fact, for me, I feel so bad about it. There's no doubt, because it is very egregious betrayal.
Can we shed light on the issue here? Because the issue now is that mandatory transmission of election result in real time. Now, from what Mr. President, no, okay, not Mr. President, Senate President, from what he said, because he tried to defend what they did, and he said that the lawmakers tried to make a distinction between electronic transfer of result and real-time transmission. According to him, it was necessary for them to make that distinction so that they are going to avoid legal and operational ambiguities in the management of election result. If we had time, I would have loved to play his voice, but looking at what Babi was saying, that they were trying to clarify, what is this distinction they are trying to make? Does it hold water? Talking about electronic transmission of result and the real-time transmission.
We saw the election in Anambra State. By God's grace, that would have been used to judge so many things. The election, I must let you know, as at 5 to 6 p.m., I have seen almost 80% of results. So what is that Babi trying to say? He is just trying to possibly find an escape route. Electronic, because the polling clerk, that's the section 60 we are talking about of the Electoral Act 2022. Because the idea of the amendment is actually to repeal section 60 of the Electoral Act 2022, which places such decision on the guidelines provided by INEC. And we have heard the Supreme Court saying that INEC guidelines are not law. Whether they're obeyed or not obeyed, somebody cannot use it as a ground for challenging election that INEC did not obey his guideline. That's what they told us last time. So if INEC even issued a guideline that these things, because next thing you hear is this, INEC will tell us that we will issue it in our guideline, that result be transmitted electronically, because you making such transfer is real time. See, telling us that Babi saying he wants to understand the difference between the electronic transmission and real-time transmission. Electronic transmission, immediately the electioneering process is concluded at any polling unit, is real time. If you decide to leave it late, it's still electronic transmission, but it's no more real time. It becomes real time if it is done instantaneously, immediately after the conclusion of the process. But once it's left late, it's no more real time because it is still electronic transmission. But the key thing I want to say here is this: it is a total betrayal. I have said it, it is egregious betrayal of democratic consolidation. In fact, it constitutes a brazen retrograde retreat from incremental gains we thought that could have been made using this window, using this opportunity.
Now, I've read people who are trying to argue on the line of the President of the Senate, saying that if they are going to adopt electronic transmission of result or mandatory electronic transmission of result, that is going to disenfranchise some Nigerians who live in areas with poor network coverage. But if you are going to scrutinize that very statement and put it into better sphere, given the fact that we have BVAS that has been programmed in a certain way. Now look at how BVAS works and what we are looking at now. BVAS is configured in a way that once the election result from polling units have been counted and entered into the form EC, I think is it from EC8 or what did they call it? Once the result has been once results have been counted and entered into that very paper, then you use BVAS to capture, just like take a photo shot of the result and then upload. And we're meant to understand that BVAS is configured in a way that network can be switched. Then secondly is the fact that even if you don't have network coverage in that very area, once you upload it, the moment you step into an area that has network coverage, it updates automatically to the server. But look at the argument that Ababio is bringing, that Nigerians are going to be disenfranchised, and people are asking questions: in which ways Nigeria going to be disenfranchised. And you mentioned Anambra. I think I wrote something about it this very morning. As of 7 p.m., we had seen about 9-something% of results from these different polling units uploaded on the IRM. And that is what Nigerians are asking, that we now have a law that is going to back up that IRM, whereby as results come up from the polling unit, you transmit to review it, so that we'll be able to guard against that manipulation that happens between polling units going to the ward, going to the local government, and going to state collation center. Tony,
just like you pointed out earlier on, there is no litigation. Nobody challenged Anambra State election. Nobody. Because there was never any room for rigging. What the Senate is pushing for is to allow rooms for them to rig this election, rig Nigerians out of the process. Just like I said, it is an odious, unconscionable endorsement of electoral malfeasance that imperils this very foundation of Nigerian fragile democracy. It is a very sad day for democracy, a sad day for anything good. The Senate action reeks of entrenched vested interest, prioritizing self-preservation over the sovereign will of the electorate. I can go on and say everything, but just like you said, the House of Representatives has passed their own version. The Senate has rejected provision of Section 60 of the Electoral Act, and who would also look at the concurrency. They have to come together, but if one says no, it will not go through. Both of them must say yes for it to go through. Senate has just come out to say that they did not reject the proposed mandatory real-time electronic transmission amendment. They just simply retained the original wording of Section 60 subsection 2. That's what they said. They just retained that original word. And if you look at that Section 60 subsection 2, the presiding officer shall transfer the result, including the total number of accredited voters and the result of the ballot, in a manner as prescribed by the commission, that is using the commission guidelines. But the Supreme Court has told us that it is immaterial. It's immaterial when it comes to challenging an election result. It is purely immaterial, empty. You don't come to tribunal, come to court to challenge the outcome of result because of guideline of the commission. So for me, I have said everything I want to say. The discretion in language is not acceptable. Nigerians want the electronic transmission to be mandatory. That's what Nigerians want. I don't know why 109 people will tell us otherwise. We are over 100 million registered voters and still counting. 109 cannot tell us otherwise. That's what I said. It is good to be a good follower as well. Nigerians are keeping quiet. They have to challenge these senators. Many of them are representing different senatorial districts, different constituents. Must tell their senators, this is not what we want in any way legally acceptable. Because I don't preach violence. I do not preach violence. But they can't just keep on doing this. Whoever they're acting the script for, whoever they are trying to please, even them, we know they are trying to so please themselves. Many of them are there snoring, sleeping. Nigerians are paying heavily for their snoring, paying heavily for their sleeping. We saw one of them the other day massaging a woman's foot, a masseur for that matter. And even when he came yesterday,
AI.
I said it was AI. How can it be AI, Franklin, when the woman was the one that posted it? The woman posted it on her TikTok account. She described herself as sugar baby. She doesn't want broke guys. The person that posted it deleted it. How can the woman generate AI of what you have or what you had with her? But because she deleted it immediately, both on Instagram and this thing, and you can see the private jets they were causing. That's what Nigerians pays for. That's what we pay. We keep paying. But
okay,
the truth remains that it cannot continue.
All right. Okay, at this point, and let's go for this very commercial break. Once we return, we take your calls. Please, the phone lines are 0803 221 6973 or 0803 827 6694. Articulate your thoughts because we will have 1 minute for you to make your submission.
Udala Radio 104.7 FM.
ọrịa arụbara na ọrịa osinikuku akpọrọ rubella bụ ọrịa ogbu na nwayọ. Ha bụ ndị nke na-agbasa ngwa ngwa ma bụrụ nke na-akpatara mmadụ ikpu isi, imebi ụbụrụ isi, atụ ọpụọ, ọtụtụ mgbe na-abụ ọnwụ.
Kwa ụbọchị ọbụla nwatakịrị ụmụafọ ala Naịjirịa nọ n'ihe egwu mana enwere ozi ọma ọgwụ mgbochi ga-echekwaba nwa gị. Gọọmenti Anambra Steeti bụ ndị nke na-achịkọba ọrụ ịgba ọgwụ mgbochi malite n'ụmụaka ndị a mụrụ ọhụrụ wee ruo n'afọ 14 nke ga-amalite site n'abalị 4 ruo abalị 15 nke ọnwa Febrụwarị afọ 2026 iji wee chekwaba ụmụaka nọ n'ime steeti a pụọ na ya bụ ọrịa ogbu na nwayọ. Kpọga ụmụaka gị malite n'ọnwa 9 wee ruo n'afọ 14 maka ịgbagha ọgwụ mgbochi nyere ọrịa arụbara na ọrịa osinikuku akpọrọ rubella tata. Gbaa ụmụaka gị ọgwụ mgbochi ndị a niile malite n'ụbọchị a mụrụ ka. Ọ bụ na agbachanya bụ ọgwụ mgbochi ndị a ga-agakwa n'ihu wee na-agba ya n'ụlọ nlekọta ahụike niile e nwere n'ime steeti a. Ọgwụ mgbochi a dị mma ma na-alụ ọrụ gwogo. Ọ bụkwa nke a kwụrụ ụgwọ ya site n'aka gọọmenti. Nya bụ echenekwa ka agwa gị gaa n'ụlọ nlekọta ahụike ọbụla dị gị nso ma ọ bụ n'ebe a na-agbanya bụ ọgwụ mgbochi. Abrapụkwana nwa gị n'akụkụ. Ozi a si n'aka gọọmenti Anambra Steeti na ndị ga ha na-ejikọtara aka n'ọrụ ịgba ọgwụ mgbochi.
Udala Radio 104.7 FM. Seriously authentic.
You're listening to The Polity. Get involved now.
Okay, thank you for staying tuned to the Radio 104.7 FM. You are listening to The Polity, and it's time for us to open the phone lines to take your input into today's conversation. 0803 221 6973 or 0803 827 6694. Good morning. Hello.
My name is Badmos. I'm calling from Unewu.
Mr. Badmos, go on.
Good. First of all, let's tell ourselves the simple truth. I don't see anything wrong in what you said. I mean the attitude, God's will. Let's see that. Because this electronics and real time, all these things have been bringing problems into electoral act. So I think for the Senate to take a bold step and reject such mistake from our electoral process is a welcome development. Because we are all aware that there are so many discrepancies when it comes to electronic gadgets. For instance, people will agree with me that most times banks, someone will pay money into your account by 11 o'clock in the morning, and you won't even see the alert. Go to various banks right now. You see some people standing on the customer care, putting out the account because there are network issues. So, the bank that claims to be a professional body can witness such issues. What about INEC that are using ad hoc staff to pilot the affair?
Okay,
so
thank you.
The Senate has done well on that area. Then, on the other hand...
All right, thank you. Thank you. Please, I said 1 minute, but maybe I should make clarification later. Let's take more calls. Hello, good morning.
Hello. Good morning, Frank.
Yes, good morning.
Antonio Lisabeth, good morning to you.
You're welcome.
Mario Kechi, calling from Onitsha.
Go on, Mario.
On the issue of Nanda Carlo, It's only federal government. Anytime they want to release that man, they release that man. This appeal and appeal and appeal, he did nothing. The reason why they never convicted him before, they are afraid of what can happen if you convict this man. But they have done it and nothing happened. So therefore, they cannot release him under any appeal or maybe some court order, unless they want to release him on maybe political ground or something like that. So to me, they are wasting their time. Then on the side of what the Senate did, honestly, we are in Nigeria. If you are angry, pack your bag and baggages and go to Zimbabwe. Turubu will never leave that. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Mary Kay. Okay, so let's see what we have next. 0803-221-6973 or 0803-827-6694. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Ibuka Franklin.
Good morning. Your name?
Good morning, Dr. Tony Osambeto Garakini.
You're welcome. It's good to have you.
Obike from Obochi. I proceed.
Yes, go on.
Yeah. I want to comment on the issue of INEC. Coming on air, telling people that in 4 weeks they get 4,000 plus people to register. It's not to register the issue. It's to bring the card out before the time. I remember the time of governorship election of September precisely in Anambra State. More than thousands of people, they do not vote. Because of what? They do not see their card. And one thing I noticed of putting vote is that there's a paper they press on board there. If you come to see them, you bring the old voter's card, they take the number and give you something to go and vote. That's not the exercise. That's the issue they used to divert so many things about voting system in this country. What I'm advising INEC for them to start immediately, as they get that 4,000 people candidates to give them card, let them proceed immediately to bring the card out. And the last year old, let them continue as they say they will bring it. Let them start now printing all the cards out to give the citizens of the country for them to vote for the person they like to read them to promise land. And secondly, if you watch what I say tomorrow, you see on court today, massacre for this state, massacre for this state. If you're not kill police, they kill military guys. In this country, in different states, you see a young lady, some are with one child, some are pregnant before their husband died. A lot of widows, if you ask them what happened, where is their husband, she will tell you probably that the husband was killed in the duty side. What do you think? A lot of them that we are still in the country.
Okay, summarize.
Nigerians, heaven help those who help themselves. I rest my case here, brother. You are blessed.
All right. Okay. Thank you for joining OPK from Obosi. Don't forget you can as well go to our Facebook page and drop here a comment. We are going to acknowledge that very soon. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, your name?
The Honorable Mayor Okufume JP.
Yes.
Okulola Umezeneka Auda News. Can I go on?
Yes, go on.
Yes, I don't know. I thank you people. Yes, what I want to say in NS is this. This thing that our Senate, the INEC and our Senate are doing about electronic voting. We open our eyes and show us that we are not serious in having a credible election. In the Western world, almost all developed countries in the Western world are using electronic voting, and they are getting it right. But because they know that if we use electronics, most of them, in fact, almost all of them will not be in that Senate. That is the reason why they don't want electronic voting. And you see our INEC people, they know what they are doing because they know that they are not conducting credible elections. That is why they are following all these lines. They are towing this line. But I want to make it categorically clear, whether they want it or not, 2027 election will not be business as usual. Because we have seen the way things are going and we can't continue to suffer. Then about insecurity, killing, let me tell you people simple thing. If something is not, if Gumi is not being arrested, I'm telling you, killing will continue because the government people knows what is happening in insecurity in Nigeria. If they want to fight insecurity, let them arrest Gumi first.
All right, thank you.
You will see things will change. Thank you and God bless you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for joining. So let's see who we have next on this very line. Hello, good morning. Okay, try again. Good morning. Hello.
I am Great Dim. We're closing the envelope from tomorrow.
Okay, go on, Dim.
Good morning, Chief Doctor Dim Tony Obunda.
You're welcome, my brother.
Franklin, good morning. Senate, Nigeria Senate rejecting electronic transmission of results. Yes, that can only be obtained in Nigeria or in a country that has chosen never to develop. Yes, when every country on earth is aspiring to grow electronically, digitally, and robotically, Nigeria is dwindling at the back. What a country. What an entity. What a failure. Senate President of Nigeria, Fabio, he can never allow Nigeria to grow. Nigeria Senate is a rubber stamp. Otherwise, if they are very pushful and inspiring, they ought to copy countries like China. When I was young, during my, when I was a child, Nigeria and China was at the same pedestal, including India. Today, where is India and China? The first world. Nigeria has gone down to the 10th world. What a country. Away from that, Mazin Nanikano appealing his judgment, a welcome development. Unless God doesn't own the world, no man has not been, blessed by God, who thrived, and progressed like Mazin Nanikano, who handled nature the way Mazin Nanikano handled nature. To save mankind from repression and depression. Mazin Nanikano, he is my Lord and my Savior anytime, any day. May God bless him.
All right. Okay.
Good morning, everyone.
All right. Thank you. So for some of the posts you posted on our Facebook page, I will try to abridge some of them because we have like 5 minutes for us to be able to accommodate all the posts there. Then Austin Mogu, texting from FM Onitsha, says, on voter registration, I'm urging Southeast people to come out en masse and get their voters card. This is why the federal government is seeing us as an unserious region. If during presidential election we produce number of votes here in the Southeast, so many things we are suffering from, federal government will not be as if it's like the case of Mazin and Kano. When they know that votes that will come from the Southeast can change a government in Nigeria, our politicians will always like to do something to discourage the voters so that they will have a room to manipulate and do something that will favor themselves. Okay. Zakwa Celestine says the killings are getting too much, or should I say it's becoming more traditional. Come to think of it, Mr. President has not even said anything about this. So there's something about this insurgency that the government at the center is not telling Nigerians. Well, if you're asking whether the government has said anything about the killings in Kwara, of course the government has issued a statement on that very one. Then Henry Elu from Show Lights on it says National Assembly. Okay. National Assembly to approving the electronic transfer of result is like telling a thief to approve CCTV surveillance in a facility where he usually goes to steal. We are still not yet ready to get it right as far as election in Nigeria is concerned. Now, Mazin Nandikano's appeal has long been anticipated because an injustice to one is an injustice to all. The convergence of Southeast leaders is a welcome development, but any 25-50 year vision that is silent on the high marginalization of the Igbo will be considered as visionless. Okay. Then Bochiobi says he posted for me here like what happened in Enugu yesterday is a welcome development if they will do the needful. Security is very important and other things. Retract Obia Wike Chuku Christopher from College of Education and Suba says democracy in Do every of February should be remembered as the day democracy and free, fair election was murdered in Nigeria. The rejection of real-time electronic transmission or transfer of election result was an attempt to make up the lapses of the last election tribunal that didn't go their way. Most senators have played the script of the supermaster. Then Maziope says obvious that democracy in Nigeria is absolutely fearful, as the National Assembly intentionally rejected electronic transmission of results, not considering the high level of social media users. This is to tell the whole world that Nigeria is adequately equipped, 99% chance of corrupt practices. Okay, and Ugochukwu Frank says that the killing in Kwara State is like, okay, it's heartbreaking and terrifying. This massacre is a tragic result of Nigeria state failing to protect her citizens. Nothing justifies targeting innocent people. My thoughts are with the victims and their families. Arin's E.G. watching from Ibadan Settlement. Please, I want to tell our people to go and get the PVCs. Your voter card is your power to decide your future tomorrow. Then Dr. Mistimo Lebara from Owerri says Nigeria is bleeding as over 100 people are feared killed in Kwara. These are human beings and not fowls. See how their glorious destinies were aborted in the most gruesome manner. So lives are no longer sacred, not precious again, and blood not costly in this country. Shall we continue to lament every day as government is after 2027 election and has failed in its basic responsibilities of protecting lives and property? May we never pass through this again. Communion KK says that the killings have become like good morning, good afternoon, and good evening in our country. And you posted from Ojoto. Then Arinze Bartholomew Nede says another jamboree for the Southeast governors. They have never come up with any regional agenda and achieved it in recent time. And trying to be very, very direct to your messages. It's quite shameful concerning what played out yesterday in Senate. Our Senate has created a bridge of interest. I hope and trust in our electoral system. And he says Nigerian lawmakers have eliminated the true democracy in this country. That came from Mazingore Chikwadromusnachi. He posted from Udala, Onitsha, Anambra State. Certainly, we're going to report. Now, the issue of electronic transmission of election results. What was proposed is that there should be a mandatory transmission of election results from the polling unit just after voting has been completed and the ballots counted. A will pen then the form EC8, that's a result sheet. Then party agents will sign, election president officer will sign, the PO will sign, and then people who are supposed to have copies should take their copies. Then the officer in charge of that polling unit will use the beavers on with photographic ability. He will use the beavers and snap the result sheet, snap out the result, or snap from that very polling unit. The person has to transmit it to IREB. IREB is just like notice board, the viewing portal that you can log in and see result as they're coming from polling unit before they now begin to move to local government collection centers or whatever. This is what they are asking, that once the result has been entered in that very result sheet, it should be photographed and uploaded to the IRL. Now, and the way Beavers is designed is that once you have done that and you upload it, if you don't have network coverage in that area, once you step out to an area with network coverage, it will drop on the IRL.
Definitely.
So this is what they want. So that it becomes mandatory.
Yeah.
Because what you have now is that it is at the INEC discretion to decide the mode of transmission. Tony.
And that's what we are saying here. What they rejected is mandatory electronic transmission of result sheets. That's what they rejected. And if you don't make it mandatory, it becomes illusionary. And we've seen situations whereby they're just trying to tell us that whatever happens at the polling unit shall not be accounted for. That is another way of saying it. Because accountability is snapping it and also transmitting it immediately. And once it's transmitted, let it count. And it shall be mandatory. I think what they ought to have added in the clause is where such is not done, there could be a backup. The manual one becomes a backup as against losing the result of a polling unit. One, it should be mandatory. Where it suffers any hitch, then the manual one comes in place. But they don't want to see it that way, because if they had done it, it would also diffuse whatever apprehension they wrongly had, because those apprehensions were just their own superimposition. But what I'm trying to say is, it was yesterday, 4th of February. It's a sad day, but we know very well they want to come back. Mr. President wants to be president, and I've said it many times, just like many people have said, 2027, taking it out from Mr. President is just like somebody who wants to win a game where referees and every other officials will be appointed by him. So it is going to be very difficult. And secondly, the issue of Kwara massacre, provide us with state police. Provide us with state police. We've said it many times. Without state police, the Kwara state governor has come out and say, if I don't stop banditry, terrorism, kidnapping in 24 hours, if I have state police, definitely you have to do whatever you can to get me out of office. But we've seen them saying things like this in the past. But once they get there, they cannot do anything. But we want to give them mortgage. That's all I have to say.
Okay, interestingly, because one emir in Kwara State confirmed that they had buried 75 bodies, and there are still more bodies that have been, sent to their different locations, maybe the different places of origin. It's quite a sad one. Over 100 persons massacred in Kwara State. So on that very note, to end today's program, I will thank you for joining. Thank you, Tony. My name is Franklin Ebeka. Good morning.
Udala Radio 104.7 FM.